And how does it feel like to shine on everyone?
So how does it feel to leave the hacienda wasted out of your mind? The sun's coming up, but you're still tripping. You've been listening to loud music and partying with your friends all night. How does it feel? Sometimes it feels good. Sometimes it doesn't feel good.
LUXXURY, I'm so excited today because we are diving into one of our mutual favorites, a genre-blending British duo that truly defined electronic music from the mid-90s well into the 2000s.
We're diving headfirst into one of my favorite bands of all time, a huge influence on me as a musician, a band that's been like the soundtrack to my life for decades now, which is incredible to think about. It's been decades. And today's song brings together big beat, 90s Britpop, and the Beatles. Does it get any more British than that?
This song is one of the greatest distillations of late 90s British pop culture.
All in one song.
Listen, forget Oasis.
Forget about them.
Forget Blur.
Throw them out the window.
For the first time, I've never said that since before. Forget Blur. This may be the greatest British pop song of the 90s. We're talking one song, and that song is Let Forever Be by the Chemical Brothers featuring Noel Gallagher.
How does it feel like to let forever be?
We're going to be screaming a symphony today, but I don't know that we'll ever understand what it means to scream a symphony.
We're going to try and unpack these lyrics.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going crazy on the pitch at a Man U game. They're like, get that soccer hooligan out of here. Hi, I'm actor, writer, director, and sometimes DJ Diallo Riddle.
And I'm producer, DJ, songwriter, and musicologist LUXXURY, aka the guy who whispers,
Interpolation.
And this is one song.
That's right, the show where we break down the stems and stories behind iconic songs across genres and tell you why they deserve one more listen.
You will hear these songs like you've never heard them before. And if you want to watch one song, you can watch this full episode on YouTube and Spotify. And while you're there, please like and subscribe. LUXXURY, before we dive into today's song, listen, I think we got to set the scene. It's 1999, and British culture is reaching crazy heights.
It's pre-millennial tension.
Mainstream. Yes. This is right before we got inundated with everything
Y2K.
from, Y2K, smartphones, phones far smarter than ourselves. This is the era of the Spice Girls and Posh Spice dating David Beckham, Bit It Like Beckham. This is Austin Powers. This is the Beatles anthology release that came out with Free as a Bird, one of our favorite Beatles songs here at the show. British culture, it seemed like it was inescapable.
It was like a new British invasion happening
It was.
in the 90s.
It really was.
And setting the scene, it really does feel important to say that this is pre-2000. It's also pre-9/11. This is an era of innocence. There's kind of a sort of
fun freaking era. I feel
era.
bad for those of you who don't remember the 90s because there was a level of no stress that has never been accomplished since.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like there was no stress, and the British were really making incredible music. I want to talk about the Chemical Brothers. I was so excited. I actually ran into a fan of the show last night at Anderson Paak's bar, a person who works in the music industry who's like, guys, you guys do such a good job. What's the next episode about? I told him the Chemical Brothers, and he was like, I'm so excited. I've been waiting for an Electronica episode. I think this group was an introduction for a lot of us to this genre. What was the first time you remember hearing the Chemical Brothers?
I'll never forget because my buddy Claudia Anfuso, we had just graduated college. It was the mid-90s. It was 95, and the record had just came out. And she played me Exit Planet Dust.
Wow.
The first
She played the whole album.
And well, from the first moment of the first song, I was hooked because this was doing everything I wanted. By the way, it should be noted that this was my rave crew. So we are coming out of a dance music fandom. Like this is the group that we went to tracks in DC. I've talked about that on a few episodes on the D-Light episode. So we're big dance music fans, but I'm also in rock bands and I'm playing kind of funk music. In my rock band, we're kind of doing a funk rock hybrid. It's the Chili Peppers era, like all this is going on. And when I hear the Chemical Brothers, when I hear this song, it all connects.
The brothers gonna work it out. 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 The brothers gonna work it out.
There's something about this song that connected with it's all the things I liked, especially in that moment as a burgeoning music making. I was a drummer. Like I hadn't learned the other skills that I had acquired over time, but I was like, this is everything I want to be in this band. And it was dance music. It had breakbeats. So there's something funky. It's not just forward to the floor house music, but that's there too somewhere. There's something dusty about their sampling. I could tell that there's old records in there.
Their style of sampling,
But that bass line is a rock and roll bass line. That's not funky. that is something that you would hear. It's not quite Judas Priest because it's 16th notes, but there's something rock about it. And I just remember hearing Claudio play this for me and thinking, oh my God, they mixed rock and dance, and it's great. What about you, Diallo? When was the first time you heard the Chemical Brothers?
Okay. I don't know if this is necessarily the first time I heard the Chemical Brothers, but the first time they hit me was I went to Tower Records. This story is already very, very 90s. I went to Tower Records to check out some new CDs, and I found a CD compilation that was called like Now Hits. It wasn't Now That's What I Call Music.
Oh.
It was like a weird,
the dime store version of it?
It was like a weird bootleg version.
Yeah.
So this CD, I put it in my car and I'm like, wow, this song is really cool. And I was like, and I knew my writing partner at the time, Bashir. So I tell him, get in the car. I was like, I want to play this new song. And I play up this song called Block Rockin' Beats. And he was like, I was like, it's by the Chemical Brothers. He's like, oh, I know this song. And I play him the song and he says, dude, who are these? Because that ain't the Chemical Brothers. Apparently I bought a bootleg version.
It wasn't Block Rockin' Beats?
Yeah, it was like, back with another one of those block rockin' beats. Like it was like a guy saying it instead of like the actual sample.
Oh my God, now I need to hear this bootleg.
I can't find it. It's one of those CDs lost to time, but it's just it's another
Somebody
example.
recreated Block Rockin' Beats.
Somebody actually, because when I went through the whole album, suddenly I realized that's not Courtney Love singing that whole
They're
song.
all replays.
They're all, are they replays? It's just like, I feel like you can still
Or
find
covers.
these on iTunes. Yeah, like people had sold me a CD of like, not the artist singing like all the artists' songs of 1996.
And it was at Tower Records, not outside.
That was the Tower Records on
the
Sunset.
pavement, like on the mat being sold.
I'll never forget when we got
for a buck.
back with another one of those rockin' beats. Like, Bashir was like, who the fuck was that? That ain't the Chemical Brothers. Yeah, let's hear a little bit of one of their very early hits. This song actually won a Grammy. This is Block Rockin' Beats.
Back with another one of those block rockin' beats.
So apparently my version of Block Rockin' Beats was not the official. I did go back and buy Dig Your Own Hole. And in fact, that's not even the Chemical Brothers who say that line. That is a sample.
Yeah, I think it's this one. There's a few vocal ones. So let's find it.
Schoolie D is back with another one of those block rockin' beats. Bust it.
Schoolie D?
Gucci again, Schoolie D, 1989. That's a hard beat too. But yeah, that's Schoolie D, 1989.
Schoolie D is so underrated, y'all. If y'all don't know Schoolie D, at least go back and listen to one of my favorite Schoolie D tracks. You've probably heard this breakbeat before. This is PSK. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah.
PSK, we're making that green. People always say, what the hell does that mean? Green for the people who can't understand. A one homeboy became a man.
I mean, that's just...
Listen, we're down the rabbit hole. I don't know how it's not come up in our first 100 episodes, but that's one of the biggest samples of all time in that song.
Yes.
We got to talk about it. I can't believe that we've gone this many episodes without mentioning Change the Beat by B-Side. One of the top 3 samples. You've heard this fresh a million times.
Little snip.
Here it is. That comes from, I'll show, that's the end of the song, and here's what came before.
Change the beat.
Change the beat.
Change the beat.
Vocoder.
Change the beat. Change the beat.
It's incredible how this song from 1982, which I think Fab Five Freddy has something to do with this track.
Yeah. Fab Five Freddy was all over the downtown scene.
Yeah. Fab Five Freddy is on this track. It's B-side. It's kind of a one-off. And like at the end of the song, that one isolated fresh means it's easy for DJs to actually mix it in or for producers. And it's used in literally thousands of songs. It's an iconic marker of hip-hopness, of lineage.
And you kind of had to be the cool kid that Fab Five Freddy was in the early 80s to know, hey, I'm going to make this song.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be the Chemical Brothers to be cool enough to know, hey, we're going to sample that song. That's what I love about the Chemical Brothers and a lot of the electronica that's coming out in the mid-90s. This is actually the first time in my life where I am kind of fed up with hip-hop. I mean, admittedly, I think I said it on some other episodes, because Puffy became so dominant in the aftermath of the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. Hip-hop was sampling in a very lazy way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we had moved away from Premier and Pete Rock, and now he was just sampling Hollywood Swinging for,
just wholesale, two bars,
sampling.
4 bars.
And this is when I
Of
got
Diana
into
Ross.
electronica because I was like, oh, these guys are still doing like cool samples and it sounds like art. It sounds like collage. And that's why
Yes,
I
that's
thought
a
it was
great
really
word,
incredible.
collage.
And the Chemical Brothers are sampling and they're really adjusting the music for the dance floors that they are DJing. Just for those who don't know, the Chemical Brothers are Tom Rowlands and Ed Simons. They're a production duo. They met at the University of Manchester. So they're right there, the same area that gave us, the Hacienda Club. And so much of the stuff that we love from the 80s and that dance culture, they're just building an extra layer.
The Hacienda is key to this entire story.
Yeah.
Brief reminder from our New Order episode, which was 2 years ago now suddenly. Go back and listen to it. It's still great.
a good
But
episode.
New Order created a club called the Hacienda. They lost a lot of money from it.
Watch the movie 24 Hour Party, people. You'll get all of this.
In very stark contrast to what's happening in America in the 80s, it's rock and dance merging.
Right.
And cross-pollinating between the two. Bands are bringing in dance elements to their music, like Primal Scream, like you mentioned. Famously, this remix of Loaded by Andrew Weatherall, who's part of our story. So that is a rock band going to the Hacienda, going to dance clubs, being influenced by the sounds and the beats and the rhythms and the tempos and the sampling. And then you have another thread, which is the Chemical Brothers, which is bedroom producers who are coming from a DJing perspective and bringing some of the same elements in. But they're all going to rock clubs and they're all going to dance clubs.
And the drugs are changing.
Drugs?
We have a
Let's tell me
mutual
about the
friend.
drugs.
We have a mutual friend, Henry Self, who once told me famously when I first met him, he was like, if ecstasy, not even Molly, but if ecstasy was the sound of that early rave scene, by the mid-90s, things had gotten a little darker, musically. And also people had gotten tired of Four on the Floor. Even as a hip-hop DJ, my problem with house was often that I was like, don't you get tired of that same Four on the Floor beat? I love it now. But I think one of the reasons I gravitated to electronica and electronic music at this time is that in this subgenre, which became known as big beat, it was a little darker, so it kind of went better with my hip hop, and it also had intricate drum beats, which just as a listener, I was just like, these are really fascinating beats. Big beat is created by artists like Fatboy Slim, The Crystal Method, The Prodigy, and I've always considered the Chemical Brothers and all these groups electronica more than even big beat, because at the end of the day, even if they were using the drums differently, it was all coming together for the purpose of electronic dance and electronic psychedelic music.
Yeah, so you mentioned big beat, and that's kind of like every genre that ever exists is maligned by the people that are categorized in it.
Totally.
This is no exception.
Yeah.
I would say personally that when I hear the Chemical Brothers, it's all these influence we're talking about. It's going to rock clubs and it's the Hacienda. It's New Order's influence of merging band stuff with like a synthesizer,
Totally.
house beats, etc. Blue Monday. But there's also a very specific genre that is like very Chemical Brothers. This is an acid house, British acid house
Acid
band
house, yeah.
that also uses sampling and breakbeats. If anything, their specific big beat formula might be exactly that. What happens if acid house meets breakbeats?
Yeah, it's almost like they took the 303 and they put a very specific sort of like drum sound.
Exactly right. Let's play what that sounds like and then we'll explain it. This is Future Acid Tracks from 1987, one of the seminal Chicago acid house tracks, using this instrument. This sound that you're about to hear, the squelchy thing, is actually meant to be a bass sound, but didn't really sound like a bass. So these early producers were like, hey, it does this. This is awesome. Let's do it. Sounds like acid. All that squelchy, squeaky stuff is a bass. It's like a Roland TB-303, which is intended to be bass lines, but they found that it made all these
They're like,
weird sounds.
it got the assignment all wrong, but we like where it ended up.
Exactly, which is the beautiful thing that happens with these machines. They find unintended usage, which is better than the intended one. Tom Rowlands from Chemical Brothers says, all our records are influenced by our first connection with acid house and everything within that sort of intoxicating feeling that we had when we first found dance music. So this is really foundational to Chemical Brothers and to this song.
That's super helpful, Blake. And I think what you bring up is actually important to point out. This is a time when, like, if you live in America, there are certain labels that are, I think, just nailing it. Ninja Tune is one of them. Astralworks has Fatboy Slim, Daft Punk, the Chemical Brothers. Like, certain labels just have everybody. And I think what sets the Chemical Brothers apart is their embrace of psychedelia and, like, this subversive collaboration with they're always kind of flirting with the Beatles. On their second album, Dig Your Own Hole, which is where I sort of came into my fandom of the group, they have this collaboration with Oasis frontman Noel Gallagher,
Right.
Where he sings like Liam Gallagher for years,
Yes.
decades almost.
I thought it was him too.
I thought it was Liam Gallagher, but you've got Noel Gallagher. He's arguably one of the biggest rock stars of the era. Definitely one of the biggest in British music. And they do a song called Setting Sun. I have some questions about this one. Let's listen to it first. This is their number one hit in the UK, Setting Sun.
You said your body was young, but your mind was very old.
I'm getting too hype.
This is a good band. This is
I'm
a good
getting
song.
too hype, dude.
It's all good.
Listen, this is the rawness. This is like the aggression that I feel is
This is the
missing.
rock and roll. It's the rock and roll and dance
I feel
music.
like it's
I'm
the
telling
aggression
you.
that I've been missing in the current hip hop era. Like,
Okay.
I really want. It's why I like JPEG Mafia
Yes,
and
me
some
too.
of the Denzel Curry stuff. But like, I need to like rage out a little bit. Setting Sun is such a good song. I gotta say, it does sound a lot like a Beatles song that I
Yeah.
know. And this is the first time anybody's ever drawn a line between Oasis and the Beatles. I'm sure nobody else has ever heard these
Right.
Beatle influences
Wait,
with
what?
that band.
There's a connection between those bands. Huh, interesting.
Can you play a little bit of Tomorrow Never Knows?
Listen, I've done one step better
No,
than
you
that.
can't do it. No, play. Go for it.
I'll do you one step better. I did a little bit of a side-by-side so we can hear the connections. The songs are connected. Is it an interpolation? Let's listen and find out.
Okay.
So Tomorrow Never Knows sounds like this.
I mean, that's the note, right?
Turn off your mind.
That's so good.
It's
I
so
love that
good.
song. Hey, Fight Me. That's the best song on Revolver.
Let's talk about this just for a second. It is the best song
It's
on
the last
Revolver.
song on Revolver, right?
It is the best song on Revolver, and Revolver is the best album. Therefore,
Oh, you're wrong
it's the
about
best
that, though.
Beatles song.
No.
Therefore, it's the
No,
best
no.
Beatles
It's
song.
not the best album.
The connections.
Lost me.
Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles starts with this C drone.
Yes.
It's just a single
I
note.
heard
There's
it. Yeah.
no tonality. It's just a C. We don't know if it's major or minor.
And it's a sitar.
It's a sitar. The Chemical Brothers song starts with a C.
Yeah.
You play them together, it sounds like this. They're both in C. That's not illegal. That's not illegal. It's not infringement.
The Beatles don't own the letter C, you guys.
They don't own the letter C.
They don't own the letter
That's
C.
right. We should title this episode that. And then when the beat comes in, when Ringo comes in with the beat, it sounds a little like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 2 and 4. And the Chemical Brothers beat sounds a little like this. And when you put them together, that's obviously a little chaotic there, but the beats align. The snares are in the same place.
Is the Chemical Brothers drums, are those original drums or is that a sample?
We're going to get to that in a second. Two more quick things. We've got these birds, not birds. It's one of, by the way, the Tomorrow Never Knows connection has many layers. A second layer, I'll tell you now, is the Beatles pioneered the use of loops in
Yeah,
a pop song.
Totally.
They had gone home, they all had little tape recorders, and they taped sounds that they found around. These aren't coming from other records.
Yeah.
These are loops of sounds in the world, and this is one of them. I always think of these sound like birds to me, but it's this sound.
I know. Yeah.
Like seagulls or something.
Yeah. They went to the Lilliputian shore and got some seagulls making
Right.
some sounds.
Right. And there's a number of different loops within the song, but they are sampling pioneers too with this song, clearly an influence.
We're cracking codes today, folks.
And in the Chemical Brothers Setting Sun, we have a similar sound. It's this. They don't sound the same. It's not the same notes, but sort of the idea of this high-pitched weird thing is happening in both songs.
That's so good.
And last but not least, we have the song itself when the vocals kick in. We learn that it is in C major.
Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream.
But there's no harmonic information in the song. There's no chord changes. The bass is just playing one note. Same thing's happening in Setting Sun, except it's C minor. That's the only difference, is the notes being hit and the melody turn out to be minor.
You're the devil in me, I brought it from the cold.
You said your body was young, but your mind is very old.
This is a classic case of being inspired by a song,
Yeah.
writing sideways from it, but making a completely new composition.
Writing, like, not even sideways. It's like 10 degrees.
It's right on top of
It's
it.
not 45.
It's
very
right on
cute.
top.
It's a very cute angle.
It's a very cute angle. It's right on top of it, but there's nothing illegal about it. And we weren't able to corroborate this necessarily, but there were some, threads on the internet that perhaps the Beatles sued or tried to sue, but then it was demonstrated by a musicologist that they were, in fact, not using recordings. That's important. It wasn't a sample, it was a replay. They programmed the drums to sound like Ringo's drum beat, but nobody can own a drum beat.
Right.
You can't own the rhythm itself. So the second you move away from using a sample and redoing the same sound, finding the same sound in the same drum beat, it's completely illegal. So this is a legal writing sideways new composition. I'm all in favor. It's a great tool for songwriters out there. Take a song you love, break it down like that, and redo certain ideas from it into something new.
Well, listen, today we're talking about a song from their third album, Surrender, which is my personal favorite Chemical Brothers album, hands down. Tom Rowland describes this album as their attempt to craft the perfect album. He says, we were trying to squeeze everything they liked about music and everything they wanted to say with their music into one cohesive album.
I think they succeeded. It is beginning to end such a beautiful, perfect album. And what a great journey, too. We'll be talking about that later.
One of the things that I love about this album, in fact, anytime I've ever thought I wanted to put out my own album, I was like, I'm absolutely going to steal that structure, that format, is that the songs blend from one into the next. Like, it's almost like a DJ set. The songs don't fade out and then it's coming like, no, this is one cohesive thought. And it's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
When one of my absolute favorite songs of all time, Got Glint, which sounds like an early Chicago house song, bleeds into, I think, their first single off this album, which is Hey Boy, Hey Girl.
Sounds like Washing Machine.
It's insane.
Summer Renaissance.
They're bringing it in.
Intrigue.
Hey girls, beat boys, superstar DJs. Here we go!
And I'm glad that you mentioned that it's a seamless blend, like a DJ set. The one song blends into the next. That's literally how they are on stage. So they have their DJ background really comes into play, how they make records, how they make songs, but also how they flow from stage to your headphones and back again. It's the same band all the way across. The way they play live is they take the sounds they've recorded, the songs and the sounds, they blend them in interesting new live remixy ways on stage.
Dude.
One of the best shows I've ever seen, Coachella 2005.
Chemical Brothers?
Yes.
Okay, so I have to jump in here.
Yeah.
I went to the first Coachella, 1999. I paid my $50, if you could believe that, and I drove out to the desert by myself. I found comfortable parking and walked in. I mean, like, that's how much a non-big deal the first Coachella was. And I went to go see Underworld, and they were great. But I will say, a moment that changed me as a person was when I walked past the stage and had Beck, and I went to go see the Chemical Brothers, because I did like them, and I did love this album. But
you liked fake Rockin' beats, or at this point, you moved on?
Here's the thing. This is when they were supporting Surrender. And I'll never forget this moment. It's clear as a day to me. I'm standing in front of the stage, and they play Music Response.
Yeah.
Right before the music changes in Music Response, the projection behind them was of these robots. It was a robot cartoon, and it was in black and white. And right when the music changed, just like Dorothy entering Oz, they went color. And at that moment, I screamed out loud. I'm completely sober. I screamed out loud, "Color robots!" And I lost it. And I knew at that moment that, at least for the next couple of years, hip-hop had been replaced as my favorite genre of music.
By the Chemical Brothers.
When Music Response hits that one
Not
moment.
even a genre, but this band was the one.
Not even this band, but I just knew at that moment, I was like, any music that could do this and provide a visual that I thought was just brilliant in that moment, it did something to me. It's right here in this moment. You'll hear the transition. It's a Music Response off the album Surrender.
Music that triggers some kind of response.
Color robots. It sounds quaint now, but I'm telling you, when you're in your early 20s and that happens and you're just open to the moment, it does change the way you listen to music.
This is DJ-centric music composition. This is not how you think if you're a
You're not like,
Beatles fan and you disdain dance music. No, this is important. This cross-pollination, they're learning from both sides. You can learn about harmony and melody. If you're only listening to acid tracks, you won't be getting a lot of harmony and chord changes. But if you're only listening to the Beatles, you're not getting some of the stuff that dance music has, like tension building and sound selection.
From
and,
song to song. They're not thinking like, oh, let's go into our next single. No, this is a continuous thought. And I want to point out one other thing, because this is actually lost also in today's EDM environment. You got to remember, there weren't a bunch of laptops on stage. There wasn't a pre-programmed set, so to speak. These guys are on stage with like what I used to term banks of keyboards and equipment. They're on stage. There are chords everywhere. Feng Shui people would lose what a Chemical Brothers concert looked like
they
back
bought,
then.
owned, and transported around with them every piece of gear available.
And they're literally running around the stage, like pulling a chord, adjusting a thing. Like they're remixing and changing their songs in essentially real time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that sort of like hands-on, tangible approach to electronic music, you don't see it very often anymore. This is the period that we find ourselves in, where they are literally manipulating the samplers, manipulating the keyboards in real time. I feel so fortunate that I got to see that. Because again, you don't get to see people creating their music on stage in electronic music the same way today. And by the way, there's so many legendary collaborators on this album as well. They have a dreamy psychedelic track with Hope Sandoval and Manzi Starr called Asleep from the Day.
I fell asleep from day.
And the dance floor banger Out of Control with Bernard Sumner of New Order. One of my favorite breakdowns of all time is the guitar solo that comes really 2/3 of the way through the song. It reminds me of Coachella every time I think of it. And they bring back Noel Gallagher once again to lay down some vocals on today's song, Let Forever Be. Well, listen, when we get back, we're going to dive into the stems, and LUXXURY is going to see if he could actually rebuild the main sample for this song. You'll have a whole new level of appreciation for just how radically transformed this sample is, and the Chemical Brothers' production genius after this. Don't miss it. Stick around. Welcome back to One Song LUXXURY. What can you tell us about the recording of this song?
All right, so the album was recorded at Orinoco Studios in South London. Nothing to do with Enya. I had to look it up just to be sure.
Orinoco.
The Orinoco flow was with them in a different way, shall we say. But Enya, great artist. One of my dream, actually, stems. Anyone with Enya stems, send them to me, man. That would be so dope.
That'd be cool.
We could literally do an entire podcast just breaking down the equipment list that the Chemical Brothers, what they have used over time, how it's changed their production flow, their process. But that's not this show. We're going to focus on Let Forever Be. It should suffice to say that they used a lot of vintage synths, a lot of vintage gear. They have huge sampler collection. They talk about their MPC 3000, but they also talk about their Akai's. It's unclear which of these tools were used. What we do know is that it was Ed and Tom and a third gentleman who made the record. And that third gentleman is named Steve Dub Jones, dub in quotes, who's sort of like the Bob Power, maybe, if you go back to our Tribe Called Quest episode. Yeah. He's an engineer, and his main role is when Tom and Ed, the Chems, bring in all of their samples and loops and ideas, he helps make arrangement choices, cleaning up sounds, maybe dirtying up sounds. A lot of their process seems to revolve around jamming. So they'll kind of jam out, throwing things in and out. And then he, from my understanding of how their process works, will often kind of make editing decisions and sequencing decisions.
All right, well, let's get into the stems. Let's start with the intro. I'm not sure what instrument that is. It sounds like a violin to me. What does that sound? Is it a sample?
So glad you asked. So we're going to start by breaking down this sample at the beginning and going through the song. It starts with, and I'll play for you, I'll kind of break down that opening loop. It starts with 4 bars. So the intro sounds like this. Now, another thing that's beyond the scope of this episode to talk about is every single sound in that layer, because there's a lot of sample transformation and sonic transformation.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. If you think about that as being it's a 4-bar loop, and the key change is important here, because we go from E flat to D flat to A flat and back to E flat. The way they're doing that is they're not playing on the guitar those chords.
Okay.
They're not playing on the keyboards those chords. They're taking a single moment of a sample, which I'm about to show you, and they're repitching it in order to
Got
get
it.
all the harmonic content of the song.
Wow.
Because outside of this sample and some of the synths and fluctuating sounds on top,
Yeah.
it's drums, bass, vocals. So here is that first bar. This is the E flat that it begins with. I'll play that one more time so your ears can get used to it, and I'll show you where that comes from. So originally, the source of that sound is as a piece of this. See if you can pick out where that sound might be in what I'm about to play you.
Is that part at the end?
Yeah, the part at the end.
Okay, cool.
You found it. If you pitch that part at the end up 4 semitones, it sounds like this.
Yeah, there she goes.
Right? Just pitching
Yeah.
up 4 semitones, you're suddenly, oh, that's
Yeah.
where we live. But 4 semitones down, you're like, I kind of hear it. When you take that and reverse it, then we really start to hear what we heard in that first bar of the 4-bar loop. I'll play it again.
Wow. Yeah.
So what they did using one of their many samplers, it might have been the Akai, it might have been the MPC. I'm guessing it's the MPC 3000 because of its sequencing functions, etc. It doesn't really matter because what they did was they made magic out of transforming the sound and the
They
harmonic
pitched it
content.
up, they reversed it.
So samplers can be rack mounts or they can be keyboards. I'm going to use a keyboard to demonstrate how you can repitch the sample and turn it into the loop that we hear at the beginning of the song. Here is the E flat, the original pitched up and reversed sound. I'll play it on the keyboard. And you can pitch that up and down the keyboard. And what they did was to make the 4-bar loop of that first E flat to a D flat, and then they go to A flat, and then it goes back up to A flat, and I think that there's an octave down. I hear a
Yeah.
lower sound. So now I'll just play the whole thing, and then I'll compare it to the loop. So that's the foundational sample in the loop. There's other things blended and transformed in there, but the harmonic content, kind of the bass line, there is a bass line, but it's just doing this melodic ostinato on top. Right. We'll play that for you in the stems, but now here's the loop at the beginning of the song again. I recreated it, and now you can compare it and decide how good a job I did. Here's the real deal with all the other stuff on top.
Excellent job, my man.
I think I did a pretty good job.
I think you did a really good job. I think the only difference is that there's no gap in between. They made sure that the notes connected.
Absolutely. These the tools, the sequencing
Sure.
tools, and using computers. I think at this point they were using a Mac or Cubase. Maybe on Mac is one thing I saw. Their process changed many times over their 30-plus year career.
Sure.
But in this moment, they had the capacity to do what you said, to tighten it up, to add layers on top of it. But the primary...
And that sound of like and the actual sound of a reversing record, like that.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's actually in that sample. I mean, to my ear, but it's hard to say. There's clearly a combination of sounds in there.
I want to talk about the drums. What's going on with the drums on this song?
Well, we have a 2-bar loop, about 127 BPM, very evocative again of Tomorrow Never Knows.
Perfect. Yeah.
Certainly evokes a little bit of that Tomorrow Never Knows vibe. It's
Absolutely.
different because of the syncopated snare,
Yeah.
but it's different. It's a new song. It's a different vibe.
Did they hire a live drummer, or was this a sample from a song?
It's a great question. I wasn't able to definitively find that out. To my ears, it sounds like a drummer. It sounds like there's bleed from the headphones that the drummer is listening to the track, maybe playing over what was originally programmed with a sampled beat and they're
Yeah,
replaying it. It's unclear to me, but it does sound like an original beat. I don't think it's sampled from something else.
One of the things I love about this song is the bass part.
Yeah.
I will literally be walking down. So what's going on there? Is that a live bassist?
Once again, great question. I have more questions
Don't
than I have
know.
answers.
No problem.
The sound of the bass in the stems as I've procured them, to me, sounds like something's been filtered out, meaning it came from something else. I'm not sure, though. To my ears, it sounds performed. Again, it doesn't sound like a sample.
Right.
Not really sure. But I will tell you this. It is an ostinato. It doesn't change the entire song. Even when the key changes briefly, like in the 4-bar loop, it's just doing the same thing the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's this.
Which might lead us to think it's a sample. Maybe.
Yeah, it's true. That's a great point, actually. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, let's hear it.
Not knowing kills me. It hurts so bad right now. And I'll add the drums back in. I want to be in this band.
It's a good band.
There was a criteria once upon a time where like I liked music where I wanted to be every position in the band. Like I love what the drummer's doing. I love that that's happening here. Like I want to play all these parts. But so that's our rhythm section. That's our 2-bar loop. It goes through the whole song. In the rhythm section, all the changes harmonically are happening just in that sample as I was playing you before.
Beautiful. There's
only one kind of chord change within the song. It goes to the 4. It goes from the E flat to the A flat. That happens in the sample. It sounds like this. And for context, I'll just play you what the vocals are doing there. It's so interesting how harmony is treated because it's just the sample and the bass line. So the sample went from the E flat to the A flat. It sounded like this. And again, I'll just show you how they did that. They just went like this. They just went.
Yeah, I hear it now.
Right?
Yeah.
You can hear how it's the same sound, just shifted. So it's a little slower sounding because that's how samplers worked in the pre-Ableton era.
Yeah.
If you played a lower note, it was slower. If you played a higher note, it's faster. If I go to the A flat on top, it's faster because just speeding up the sample to get to the pitch being higher. And in the bass line, there's a tiny little change that I'll play for you now. Just those first 2 notes go to that change, but the rest of that that little loopy thing stays the same.
Can we hear it all together?
Let's hear it all together. Great idea. Back to the E flat. The psychedelia of this band cannot be underscored enough.
It takes me back to the Jimi Hendrix
shit,
episode
bro.
we just did. What's funny is I listened to this song and I hear so many different parts, and most of it is coming out of their equipment, out of a sample. It's amazing that they're able to take all these things that they aren't actually doing, but then make it sound like, as you said, a band that you want to be a part of.
It goes back to minute 1 of Claudia Enfuso playing that first song on the first album, and I just immediately I grokked that this is dance music that sounds like a band is playing it.
I love it.
It's electronic, I should say, dance music. It's post-house music existing dance music with computers and electronics, but it feels like a rock band is playing it.
There is that weird sort of like, It's fun to talk about this music because you realize the limitations of the human voice.
Like, describe it to me. Oh, yeah.
What is that? What is going on there?
So I believe what's going on there is across what's beyond the scope of this episode of the show is I did go more into depth of the sample source and found other sections that were used in layers.
Oh, wow.
But like we could do a 5-hour-long episode just to recreate all of the sounds in that loop because it's so deep and extensive. And we will not do that. That is not what the show is about. But it is, again, samples, recontextualized, transformed, little fragments. It's de minimis from a copyright standpoint. It is completely transformed from the original source.
You know, I love this song, and it means so much to me, but it's also like, even as I've heard this song so many times in life, I don't know what it's about. Like, technically, I don't know what the lyrics are supposed to go towards. I do think they were trying to channel sort of like a John Lennon, sort of like 66, 67 sort of stream of conscious lyrics.
Yeah.
But, let's isolate the vocals and let's hear what he's singing.
And how does it feel like to wake up in the sun? And how does it feel like to shine on everyone?
I mean, I hear the word sun and shine on everyone. Like, it's a happy song to a certain extent.
Yeah. You know what? As I was listening, I was wondering if it's a happy song or is it like a come down after the drugs the next morning.
There's a lot of that on
the
Chemical
vibe
Brothers
that I'm
albums.
getting is like the sun's coming up and you're like, how do I feel?
Yeah.
How does it feel? By the way, New Order. By the way, how does it feel, Blue Monday?
How does it feel to treat me like you?
That's not unintentional.
How does it feel? I
That's
never
not
thought of that. I never
unintentional.
saw that connection before.
I'm
That's
just
brilliant.
noticing that. So how does it feel to leave the hacienda wasted out of your mind? The sun's coming up, but you're still tripping. You've been listening to loud music and partying with your friends all night. How does it feel? Sometimes it feels good. Sometimes it doesn't feel good.
There's a little bit of that Manchester attitude going on,
Yeah.
especially in verse number 3. He says, and how does it feel like to make it happening? And how does it feel like to breathe with everything?
Yeah, that word happening is very 60s.
Happening
Swinging London.
and to breathe with everything sort of sounds what you were saying about like it's the day after.
Yeah. But
I'm
don't
not a
forget
bad
that you're going to
party.
spend a lifetime sitting in the gutter.
Well, yeah, then he turns dark.
That's to me like, okay, we just came out of the rave. It's 8 a.m. People are going to work. I'm a piece of shit. I'm going to go sit in the gutter where I belong.
It actually reminds me of The Streets, that rapper The Streets,
Yeah.
who famously, he's like, imagine all the, leaders on pills and then managing in the morning after, always causing disaster.
Yeah.
It's that
the disaster
vibe
of the
of like,
morning
oh no,
after.
I've gone too hard. I need to scale back.
Never again. Never again. I've been watching rewatching Peep Show, one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. And it takes place it's in London or kind of around this time. And the vibe of this song and the vibe of that show really connect to me. It's like these two wastoids listening to this kind of like doing drugs and being terrible people.
Yeah.
And this is maybe the soundtrack to their lives.
Maybe so. I will also say, as many times I've heard this song, the actual chorus, when he says on the refrain, can we hear a little bit of the refrain?
And how does it feel like to spend a little lifetime sitting in the gutter? Scream a symphony.
So good.
It's so good. I always thought it was Scream My Symphony.
Okay, what is it? Scream a
According to
Symphony?
Genius, it's Scream a Symphony, which is not drastically different.
Scream a symphony.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like Scream a Symphony, but there's an M at the end of Scream.
I still hear
It
Scream My Symphony.
elides into the sound. It does sound like the elation of, it's like a guttural elation. It's like,
Yeah.
what is that Shakespeare line? We are all of us in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. It's a little bit of that vibe of just like, man, we're human, we're partying, we're having fun, and we're all going to die.
What a great 90s sentiment. Can you play a little bit of verse 3 for us?
How does it feel like to make it happening? And how does it feel like to breathe with everything?
So Oasis sounding. It really
It's
is
really
a
Oasis
perfect
sounding.
collaboration between those two acts.
They go together like peanut butter and jelly, my
The
friend.
melodic choices that the Gallagher brothers make, they very much evoke the Beatles. Part of it is because they do this combination. It's like a sing-songy. The first 3 notes are how does it? It's right in a row.
Yeah.
The third, fourth, fifth, and then he jumps a fifth. How does it feel? That's an octave from that first note. That's hard to do. It's hard to jump a fifth. He's a good singer, is what I'm saying.
He's a great singer. From a writer's point of view, even though I'll say like, oh, these words don't really mean anything,
Yeah.
they definitely get you to feel something. And
Like
I think
Wonderwall means something.
I think sometimes it's okay, like what actually is a champagne supernova? I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's okay to
That's the poetry.
inject words that make the singer feel something.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't mean a whole lot. And I think that's
think that's
where the
right.
meaning derives from the feeling you get when you actually sing these lyrics.
It does feel like Noel got the tape, listened to the track, kind of carved out a melody and put some lyrics to it, or maybe they came at the same time. But my guess is that a lot of it was sound that led to, that sound that in my melody, like he probably did like da, 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 dee, da, and then sort of put like matched to the sound words that would fit there.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have a linear narrative or a linear meaning, but it has a meaning.
It's
It
not
has
like
a poetic
Bob
meaning.
Dylan storytelling.
Yes, that's right.
But it is evocative. It is evocative of a feeling.
By the way, interesting that like the title of the song, like the chorus, like it's not really what is sung as a repeated refrain. If anything, the repeated refrain would be like "Scream a Symphony." Like I wonder if an early title of the song was like "Scream a Symphony," and then they were like, "Wait a second, the Verve Bittersweet Symphony." Like maybe
You know what's funny? I think Let Forever Be sounds the most Beatles-ish, and I think that they were definitely aiming for a Beatles vibe on this song.
Tomorrow Never Knows.
Tomorrow
Forever,
Never Knows, Let
tomorrow.
Forever Be.
Yeah.
There's
some connections.
If you found out there was a Beatles song called Let Forever Be, consider they did a song called Let It Be.
Wait, and if you found out that there was a Beatles song called Strawberry Fields Forever,
it makes a lot of sense.
You might make some connections.
Yeah, exactly. Luxury, as great as this song is, we'd be remiss if we did not discuss the Let Forever Be video.
We would be remiss. And if there's one thing on the show that we never are, it's remiss.
Remiss.
We refuse to remiss. Yeah, so the video was directed by Michel Gondry, the great French director. In his early days, of course, was a video director and did several Chemical Brothers videos.
Oh, he's part of that graduated class of the 90s music video. You've got Michel Gondry, you've got Chris Cunningham, you've got Spike Jones. Yeah. Like, it's so
all
hard
those
to
Palm
even think
DVDs,
about those.
I bought them all.
All those wonderful music videos that really defined the decade as much as the movies and the TV shows.
And they're very conceptual and they're very psychedelic. And
Fantastic.
they just really map to the music in a way that they're indelibly linked to the song.
They turned a lot of us on to film. In fact, Tom Rollis speaks about telling Michelle that they wanted to achieve a psychedelic effect, but more of a modern psychedelic effect, separate from sort of the Paisleys 60s aesthetic. Let's watch a little clip from Let Forever Be, the music video by Michel Gondry. For those of you listening on audio only, please check out this video on your own time. There is a lady who's basically running around a set of both practical special effects and then sort of like tricks within the mirror, smoke and mirror sort of thing going on. It's very trippy. You don't always know what's real. I was recently on a United Airlines flight and they use some of the same techniques in the safety video now. But like in the 90s, this was like so cutting edge.
Made you watch it. It's a good
I
idea.
did.
It's effective. It's so cool. It's so cool how they do that. There's something really timeless about it too, because even though maybe the tech was of the moment to do that, and maybe this is Matrix around this time, that first Matrix movie?
1999, yeah.
There's obviously some kind of like thought about that sort of famous Matrix, multiplicity, type style of shooting, right?
Right.
It doesn't seem stuck in that era to me. It seems really timeless. It seems there's something really classic sounding about it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So now that we've listened to this song, Luxury, tell us about the Splits. How do they break down?
So the splits are, this feels fair to me that that Noel gets 50% right off the bat because he's the top line writer.
Yeah.
And then between Tom and Ed, between the chems, interesting
25?
split. It's actually not. It's actually 40% Tom and 10% to Ed.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
Interesting. Like I suppose the both of them, especially at this point, were probably getting their own kit, their own gear together, their own separate studios, and maybe showing up on the day and collaborating with what they've both been working on. So maybe Tom started this track and Ed made some contributions. That'd be my speculation why those numbers are different.
Talking about the legacy of Let Forever Be, I love this one quote from Tom Rollis. He said, "It's more emotional and probably the most human-sounding computer music that we've ever done." And his collaborator, Ed, actually said, "Organic electronics, we like to call it." That's what they see as sort of the legacy of Let Forever Be and the Surrender album. Luxury, what do you see as the legacy of this song?
I think the legacy to me of this song and the Chemical Brothers, especially in this moment in 1999, this is 20 years into this cross-pollination of genres that kind of has this pinnacle in this song. Not only is it bringing in the acid house, the breaks, the break beats, all of the electronic things that as DJs we've been talking about are their career, it brings this other side of their background, which is the fandom of Jesus is Mary Chain, My Bloody Valentine, band and rock and New Order stuff. You've got the Oasis meeting Chemical Beats merger literally on the song with a melody and a top line, which is a pop hit. It's like a pop hit with all that stuff almost hidden underneath it. So the one thing it makes me think a lot about is this idea of like rockism. We've kind of alluded to it on other episodes, but like the Chemical Brothers are just a wonderful example of how in the UK, there was rockism. There was this idea, just to define the term, there's this idea that like anything that isn't coming from mostly men with guitars from the rock tradition, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, whatever, isn't authentic, that there's an absence of authenticity once you put machines into the equation. So
totally.
entire genres are off the table.
Their entire bumper stickers that say drum machines have no soul.
That entire attitude is very rockist because it presumes that one is good and one is bad. It's just right there in the title. So what they've done is really successfully kind of merged an anti-rockist aesthetic with actual rock in a really creative new way to bring together the acid house, the break beats, and the rock and roll. It's in this one kind of perfect 3 minutes of a song.
Totally. And I think for my purposes, I think that the legacy of this song is that this is one of those times when you were able to merge several genres into one really compelling piece of music that borrows, heavily from the past.
Yeah.
There's definitely a retro strain in this song, but pairs it with what was then considered temporary. And I think that part of it is very cool. It's easy to forget that, Daft Punk became sort of popular after the fact. During most of their career, they were not mainstream popular. At the time of this release, Chemical Brothers was a much bigger band.
I'm so glad you brought that up. You're absolutely
in part
right.
due to the fact that they sounded more like a rock band in their electronic music production.
Absolutely.
The Daft Punk, which was always looking at Chicago house as sort of the template, Chicago house music.
Well said, absolutely. And Discovery, because Daft Punk, I think the two of them at the time they both came out, Chemicals coming first.
Yeah, I
by
think
the way.
Surrender comes out 1 year and then Discovery comes out in 2000.
Daft Punk are absolutely doing a similar thing in terms of their influences, it being a duo, using electronic sounds and sampling, but they're much more sonically in the house area, the disco and funk and house area. By the time they get to Discovery, their next record, they are becoming more eclectic, perhaps influenced by the Chems, but that record's a flop. It's, to your point, it's not until Get Lucky, which is their last record, that they become massive stars and then they close up shop overnight.
Yeah, it's really not until their
later.
performance in 2006 that they sort of become the leaders of this electronic music. And groups like MGMT and Tame Impala, they wouldn't exist without Daft Punk, and they wouldn't exist without the Kims, because I do believe that the Kims helped push this electronic, psychedelic rock sound to the forefront of what was then considered pop.
And bringing it full circle, it happens in this moment in the late 90s, as we were talking about in America, where we have this British invasion. And it should be mentioned that at the time it happened, at the time we were getting the Chemical Brothers and the Prodigy in America, it was marketed, it was given a title Electronica, right?
Which I like that title because it's
not
electronic
bad.
music.
It kind of encompasses the eclecticness of it. It does imply that all these different electronic threads meet in one place.
Right.
And that's not inaccurate. But part of why that's important is because it was just far enough after disco demolition and a new generation is coming in. It's like, let's try marketing dance music to Americans again, but a little differently. And it's coming from across the pond, so maybe it'll feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting to kind of make the 90s connection that way.
Yeah, it was their way of making it
palatable, accessible,
exactly.
right?
I do hope that the same way people went back and discovered those old Daft Punk albums, that they'll go back and discover the Chemical Brothers and Prodigy and all this music from the late 90s, early 2000s that I think was really, really interesting.
So good.
And didn't get the spins that it deserved.
Totally agree, yeah.
Okay, Luxury, it's time for One More Song. This is the segment where we share a deep cut or a hidden gem with you, the One Song Nation, and with each other. How would you like to go first?
Well, the first song I have is by Spiritualized. It's called Electric Mainline. And I thought of this song as we've been doing this episode because it's of the same moment. This is another British band. But another thing, and I'll describe afterwards, after we hear the song, they do something live that really blew my mind when I heard this song live a number of years ago. That goes on a little longer. In fact, it goes on for about 8 minutes like that, with just little things coming and going, but it's one drone. And the album it's from is called Pure Phase. And when I saw Spiritualized live, they did this thing that just absolutely transfixed me, which is there's one sound that goes through the entire song we just heard.
Yeah.
This one drone that's kind of phasing, pure phase. They did that the entire concert.
Wow.
So it unified the concert experience by having a sound going through the whole thing. It was so hypnotic. And I think these guys are coming from a similar place as the Chems as far as bringing together rock and dance and sound and making it into a transfixing experience.
I love that. That's such an interesting thing, just to have one sound go through the whole concert.
I never forgot about it because it's a sound that you don't get tired of hearing. It's it just scratches your brain in that really pleasurable, your pleasure centers in all the right ways. What about you, Diallo? What is your one more song this week?
Well, since we're talking about the Chemical Brothers, I want to play one more song by them. This week would have marked the 50th birthday for an old friend of mine. Unfortunately, he did pass away, and I do remember being young, driving in a convertible with him, and we used to sing this song at the top of our lungs. So I'm going to dedicate this to David Brown, and this song is called Star Guitar.
This is also doing that phase thing from
So
the
much
other side.
phasing.
It's the phase.
So much flanging. Yeah, if I can implore dance music to do anything, bring back the psychedelic in your head sort of like space to it all. It doesn't have to all be, just for the purposes of dancing.
Speaking of space, that song samples this, and it's one of those situations where the title of the song gives you a little clue. Star Guitar. Even the chord changes.
Who's that by? What's that song?
That's by a gentleman called David Bowie. The song is called Starman, Star Guitar. The guitar from Starman, Star Guitar.
Holy, how have I never looked that up?
So wonderfully flipped into something completely different.
You truly learn something new every day.
Sorry, it's something about you said, by the way, so sorry about your friend. And I wanted to just respond to that as well.
I didn't know I was going to choose that as my
Yeah.
one more song. I had another song chose, but it would have been his 50th this week. So I'm very
We're
sad about
recording this episode on the day that my friend Teresa took her own life 18 years ago. Oh my God, I can't believe that. So we love you, Teresa. And to Mary, if you're listening, Mary Duncan, we love you. We love your family. Oh shit. I had to do the tear jerking. But yes, that person really affected me. So
Yeah.
we have people in our lives that matter, and we give them our love with this episode.
As always, if you have an idea for one more song, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. We do read those DMs. You can find me on Instagram at Diallo, Diallo, and on TikTok at Diallo.
And you can find me on Instagram at LUXXURY and on TikTok at LUXXURYXX.
And you can follow our podcast at One Song Podcast on Instagram and TikTok for exclusive content. You can also watch full episodes of One Song on YouTube and Spotify. Just search for One Song Podcast. We'd love it if you like and subscribe.
Also, be sure to check out the One Song Spotify playlist for all the songs we discuss in our episodes. You can find the link in our episode description.
And if you made it this far, we think that means you like the podcast, so please don't forget to give us 5 stars, leave a review, and share us with someone who you think would like the show. It really helps us keep it going. Luxury, help us in this thing.
I'm producer, DJ, songwriter, and musicologist Luxury.
And I'm actor, writer, director, and sometimes DJ, Diallo Riddle.
And this is One Song. We will see you next time.
This episode was produced by Melissa Duenas. Our video editor is Casey Simonson. Our associate producer is Jeremy Bimbo. Mixing by Michael Harmon and engineering by Eric Hicks. Production supervision by Razak Boykin. Additional production support from Z. Taylor. The show is executive produced by Kevin Hart, Mike Stein, Brian Smiley, Eric Eddings, Eric Weil, and Leslie Guam.